Michael, great to see you again.
Joe, it's really, really terrific to see you and see you doing so well.
Hey, listen, thank you very much. And I appreciate the outreach as well. It's always great to catch up with you. People can read it in the blog that'll be with this video, but you and I go way back. You've been kind enough to grant me many interviews over the years about the rise of the MSP market, the service provider market. And fast forward to present day, on the one hand, I want to say you're playing an encore, but on the other hand, I want to say this is a different tune. So tell our viewers what you're up to, and we'll do a dive in terms of what it all means for service providers.
You're quite right. It isn't an encore, and nor was I necessarily intending to take the stage ever again. But after, Continuum, as you know, was just an extraordinary experience for us all. We started with 43 employees in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with just one product, and ended up with over 1,400 employees on 5 continents. We had the 4 technologies that mattered and ended up being the category leader. And I'm absolutely thrilled about, every aspect of the way. And frankly, I was enjoying, a time being an advisor, being an investor. I was working with a number of private equity firms that I had really great relationships with, and helping them with diligence. And this is an opportunity that came up, actually, interestingly enough, with two private equity firms that got me asked me to participate in diligence. Of course, I had to sort of opt, into one or the other. And so I did, and lo and behold, Summit Partners ended up becoming the majority shareholder in Invicti, and asked me if I would step in, to be the CEO to run it, which, was a high honor and a real privilege. And I got, plenty of time on the diligence side to understand what they were doing that would even have me consider stepping back in and being a CEO again, because that was not my intention. But, it's so rare, and you've seen it, and I've been doing this long enough. I've seen it a few times too, where you have a whole platform shift. Look at what client server did to create companies like PeopleSoft, and that whole genre of companies and so forth. The cloud obviously has created a number of, that's a platform shift, and there is a massive tectonic platform shift underway today in and around applications, and at the confluence of a number of macro dynamics in our world today, that has created an extraordinary opportunity, and really, frankly, a new frontier for cybercriminals to pursue, which is in the application space. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. But and then when I got to see at a very deep technology level what this company had been doing for a long time, by the way, even though we're relatively unknown because we've just emerged out of nowhere, or appearingly so. Joe, I like to say sometimes it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And this company's been at it for a while, but an overnight success now they are, and has just risen almost out of nowhere into a whole new world of major players. And we are the largest and the leading dynamic application security testing company on the planet. So, it was too amazing an opportunity to pass up. So here I am.
Well, it's great to be talking to you now. Now, tell me a little bit more about the trends you saw, because one thing I always think of is the famous quote from Marc Andreessen more than a decade ago now, where it's like software is eating the world, right?
Right.
But to your point, fast forward a decade. There are multiple trends going on now. Like every company is now an applications company. Every company is now a software company, et cetera. Are those the trends, and are you helping to address those trends in terms of aligning security with those trends? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, let's pick at them a little bit one at a time. If number one, in the security space in general, if you look over the last decade or so, companies, governments, and so forth, they've spent about $2.5 trillion over the last decade hardening infrastructure, right? Firewalls, endpoints, networks, right? All of these things, we've spent, $2.5 trillion buying and licensing, technologies and things to go and secure that. And so which is terrific, right? That's great. But then there were two other things that started to take place. The first one was in and around human vulnerabilities. And that's why phishing attacks became so prevalent. And, they used to go to pretty rudimentary, some Nigerian prince wanted your bank number to wire money. And, but they got very sophisticated, right? They have your signature line on it, a specific request that uses your language. So then you have companies that came in to help protect, use technology to help protect companies from their employees, right? Making a bad decision, clicking on a bad link, downloading something and so forth. So infrastructure and then human, but now the new frontier is application. And we'll talk about that, that in general, and then sort of the macro trends as you asked for about that in just a second. But the application is the highest point of vulnerability now in the entire attack surface for cyber criminals. And once you get into an application, you actually get into your infrastructure, right? Because it's, it's rooted back in, to that environment. So you have access to data lakes, and you have everything basically once you get in. The big shifts, the big macro trends that we saw taking place is really in a couple of dimensions, and then one very unforeseen massive disruptor called COVID. But first of all, the shift in software development, the development process has changed exponentially. You have agile, people are putting out, over the last decade, sometimes some companies do a release or two a day. So we're publishing and we're pushing out, tons of new applications. It's an art form. There's over 25 million people in the world that declare themselves as software programmers. And they're using, sophisticated tools, they're using low code, no code, and they're using agile models to get out there. So it's an environment that's subject to lots of opportunities for mistakes, if you will, or vulnerabilities, I should say. They're not even code mistakes, but they're places of vulnerability. That's number one. Number two is, there are 1.9 billion websites out there today around the globe, powering our digital economy, and there are a lot of them are written on legacy systems and legacy environments and so forth. So, they weren't necessarily developed or written with security at the forefront of consideration, and so so there's a high degree of vulnerability around that. And then number three is everybody's in a massive foot race to re-platform, right? They're refactoring all these applications for cloud, because, the data center and the server under your desk and all that stuff's all gone away, and everybody's sort of shifted to the cloud. So you have this massive migration. So you have all these existing applications, and you've got a new sort of generation, if you will, of coders that are really smart, and they're using art form to get there, and they're using low code, no code, and APIs and other things to write and develop and deploy quickly, to get out into this new platform. And it's just fraught with opportunity for cyber criminals, to go and hack away. Yeah. The last piece that I'll get to, and again, this is a little bit of a unexpected disruptor, is COVID. So, I mentioned $2.5 trillion spent hardening a firewall. Well, when everybody got sent home, to work from home, what happened? Like, you moved outside of the firewall, and you were now using applications. We're using one now for this interview together, that is using an application essentially to conduct business and to be connected and everything else. So applications now connect the world, right, with the workforce. And you have a whole new consumer that came in to go buy goods because you couldn't go to the store and you needed everything delivered to the house. I mean, it just took this $2.5 trillion worth of infrastructure spend and just imploded it, and said, everybody go out and hang off of these applications, to conduct business, to communicate, to buy things, to be a consumer, to put your credit card in and everything else. And I mean, these are just enormous macro trends that is a whole sea change opportunity. And we have and this company, as I said, have some really special, technology that help, solve for all of that. So
yeah, so let me thank you for sort of double clicking on each one of these areas. So if we look at it, applications are ubiquitous, software development ubiquitous. Every size company now has access to these applications. Every size company, thanks to the cloud, right? But you roll all that together and you look at the classic sort of vulnerability management approach to the world. I'm not sure it scales in a repeatable, sustainable way. And you've solved for this before. And the way I mean for that is two career moves ago, you were enterprise focused and helping enterprises automate. One career ago, you were SMB mid-market focused, re-architecting for the cloud and helping MSPs to automate for the cloud. Fast forward to present day, I feel like you're setting out to help the world re-architect for continuous vulnerability management. My long-winded thesis, but is that correct?
that is correct. No, it's a perfect thesis. That's quite right. I mean, it coupled my journey with it, but in fact, this isn't a small company or business problem. It's not a large, it's every business problem.
That's right. Exactly.
And just how you get it, whether you get it through your MSSP or whether you get it through your own internal team, or you get it from a guide point or one of the big vulnerability management consulting companies or anything. We serve all those channels, both direct and indirect, but every company needs this, large and small. It's funny, it's as you were talking through the SMB, as Joe, you and I both remember well, small businesses used to think, well, who's going to attack me? Who cares? I'm a 22-person law office. Nobody's, they're going to go after the bank across the street. They're not going to come after me. Well, lo and behold, ransomware and everybody learned pretty quickly that everybody was vulnerable. And the same is true here. Anybody who uses an application, which is everybody, right? If you're not a part of the digital economy today, you're not a part of it. You're not participating. Right. And so everybody is using applications internally and externally. If you have a website, you are vulnerable. I mean, that is connect. You have a website. People can hack in through it and go have access to systems and data and records and everything else. So I mentioned there's 1.9 billion active websites out there today, and since I mentioned that, there's probably another couple 100,000 that got launched. Mm-hmm. Right in the in the 7.5 minutes that we've been together, and these are all places of vulnerability. We are providing continuous, because the deployment of applications, the use of APIs, right, product extensions, things you're getting from third party. You think about even a small business, this 22-person law firm. If they actually sat and counted how many applications that they use just in their daily lives and how they operate and everything else, they would be shocked. And one of the things that we do is we have a tool for discovery where people will go and find out how many applications do we even have, that we're working with, and they're blown away by the total number of applications that they've got, under their feet. So, but anyway,
I was going to say, tell me a little bit about the journey so far. So you're solving for a continuous vulnerability management. You're helping the MSSPs to, on the one hand, monetize that opportunity, but far more importantly, you're helping to mitigate risk for the MSSPs, the end customers who are watching this, the CISOs. That's the journey we're on. Tell me about the journey within the halls of your business. I think you've been there now for 6 months, give or take.
Yep.
And I have noticed a steady stream of what I would say, heavy hitters joining the company in terms of, you've got a true team that's come together in the C-suite and also across the ranks of the business. Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not the only one that recognized what an extraordinary opportunity this is. We had the privilege of having a gentleman by the name of Jeff Bray. He was the number 2 in finance and an heir apparent to the CFO there at Rapid7. So, Jeff stepped off of a 600 million, revenue market leader in vulnerability, right? But more infrastructure vulnerability. So he knows a lot about the space and a very experienced guy and a guy who can take a company public and run public, companies from a CFO position. So thrilled to have him join us. I had the privilege of having a gentleman by the name of Steve Fitz, who was the CRO at a company that was 45 million when he got started there, and 252 million when we pulled him out, called Sumo Logic. And
know it well. Yep.
Public, yeah, he was there, and they're in the observability, but also SIM, right? They have a SIM element, to what they do. So Steve knew a lot about security, but he knew a lot about growth and success. He built a beautiful company, over there. John Mandel, who is with me again. John ran all of engineering for us over at Continuum, so world class, and knows how to lead 500, 600 person, global engineering teams that are building world-class products. And so John's with us. And then more recently, Alex Bender. Alex was the number 2 guy in marketing at RSA. So, he spent his whole career in security, but 2 big landmark, positions he had, both was at RSA and then more than 5 years at Mimecast, which, as securing email, and they built a over 500 million ARR company that just got bought by Primera for 5.9 billion, I think. But they took it public and everything else. So Alex is also so world class. So we're really, it's a privilege to get to work with such an extraordinary team of really super experienced people, and they see all the same things I do here.
I don't want to steal your thunder, but it sounds like there's at least one more key name, to say the least, that's going to be helping on this journey, to say the least. What do you have in store?
Well, we're very excited to have somebody very, very special joining us. Not in an operating role, although we would welcome his operating experience and plan to leverage that tremendously here. But it's a real honor to announce that Gerhard Watzinger has joined us as our chairman of the board. And Gerhard is perhaps the most renowned leader in the whole cybersecurity category. He started a company many years ago that got bought by McAfee, and then he ended up becoming a senior executive at McAfee, and he ended up leading what became a $7.7 billion transaction by Intel of McAfee, and then he did a number of other things, including he was a primary investor and one of the original founders of CrowdStrike. He's on the board at Mastech Digital, Absolute Software, and KnowBe4 as well. So, these are all category leaders. He got involved with them before they went public, and operated as a board member or chairman of their board. And he sees the same opportunity in us here. And for him to join us as our chairman of the board is really an endorsement for what we're doing here, and a great honor.
What do you want service providers and CISOs to know about the business in terms of this journey for the rest of 2022?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We are working hard to keep up with the demand right now for the product. The product is actually surprisingly easy to use because it's in the DAST category. So dynamic application security testing, Joe, as you know, is kind of a way to look at applications from the outside in. When you're trying to do the inside out, it's very language specific. There's a lot of handwork involved with it. It's a lot of tedious, handwork, if you will. When you have an outside in view, like we do as a DAST, you can literally give us a URL, give us an API direction, just give us the destination of any application, and our tool will automate the process of hyper attacking, like a pen tester would, the attack surface of the entire application and determine vulnerabilities. And then when we determine a vulnerability, we actually do a thing called proof-based scanning. We'll actually reach into the application and pull out data and expose it to the owner, to the user, to the company, so that they can see what level of vulnerability it is and prioritize what things to lock down. And again, this is true of web apps, internal applications, APIs, just anything with the word application on it. These are all the things that we test for. And what we do is try to help people by just doing a quick, proof of value. It's not even a proof of concept, it's a proof of value. And they realize that we do, we'll do all of this testing and we'll have literally zero false positives, which is one of the biggest problems. Is these systems tend to be very, very noisy. So you don't know which problem to chase first. And it's overwhelming, right? Because software programmers don't want to go backwards, right? They don't want to go fix something they did before. They want to develop something new, right? Art form and go forward. And what we do is we're already shift right, what's called shift right, which is we'll go take an application that's been out there for 10 years, 15 years, it doesn't matter. But we'll also be far shift left. And a lot more and more programmers, developers, the DevOps team are using us so that we're actually a part of the continuous development process. The CIDC, as you know, is so that it's just easier to fix something before you go fully, deploy it. And it's more interesting to fix it, right? Because you do want, as a programmer, as an engineer, as a software team, you'd like to put out, security hardened, what we call, cyber resiliency in the application before we go out and expose it to the world and get hacked. So we're way shift left. We work in the CI/CD, and we also work, far shift right, which is go after all of the legacy applications.
It seems like you have a have it your way model in that if I'm the end customer here, if I'm a CISO, sec DevOps person, security analyst within an end customer, I could consume this for ongoing vulnerability management. But if I don't have that talent in-house or the team in-house, it sounds like I can reach out to your team and begin to network with MSSPs out there that can provide this as a managed service longer term. Is that the goal?
Yeah, that's right. There's enough room here. I mean, we've been very purposeful in leaving enough room for people like in the MSSP space to go and have an ongoing managed service, because again, they're using new applications, retiring old applications. Even though the MSSP might not write any applications or fix any of the applications, they are there to do vulnerability testing.
Yes.
And so that they can go to the customer and say, hey, we need to tell this vendor, they need to go fix these things, right? When you point all these things out, you make it a whole lot easier for resolution. So MSSPs use our tools all the time. It's actually the fastest growing segment of our business in terms of number of logos. We signed up about 750 new logos this year alone. So the MSSP is a big factor in that. It's a learn, try, buy model. People have the ability, and MSSP is completely equipped to use our tools. We have onboarding, training. We know how to bring people along sort of the delivery journey. There's virtually little to no professional services in what we do. Okay. Specifically, even though we might be a part of a bigger supply chain, GuidePoint's a really important strategic partner of ours. But so is Trace3, and Trace3 we think about as more of a products company and not necessarily a services company. I mean, they do have a nice services element too, but they're not building teams and teams of people with backpacks going in with with disk drives. It's a fairly lightweight, easy to use, agentless tool, and to do vulnerability testing. I don't know how to any better way to say it. And once any of our MSSP, any of our partners, any of our customers, anytime they do one quick proof of value, and just see how easy, quick, and the exposure, and also the zero false positives, then they're off to the races, and they're standing up and building a practice really, really quickly in an area that not everybody has. If you want to differentiate yourself as an MSSP, everybody's got security now, right? Everybody's doing detect and respond. Everybody, I mean, you have to, right? You have to be in that business today. But very, very few of them are actually testing vulnerability around applications. So, the smarter ones, are adopting our tools and setting up new practice categories that differentiate themselves in the market. We actually just landed a much coveted challenger spot on the Gartner Group's Magic Quadrant, Joe. I should note that. So, if you look at some of the players that are up in the leader box, it's companies Synoptics, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for. Checkmarks, we actually have a partnership with them. We like those guys. But it's companies like Veracode, Micro Focus, HCL. Those are so we're actually taking market share from some of the older players that have been around this for a while. We're up in the challenger box with GitLab and Sneak.
Okay.
And Sneak does a nice job on the IAST and SAST side. Again, we're on the DAST side of the equation, and GitLab's a platform. So, and that's it. I mean, that's the whole MQ.
That's the market.
World. So we nailed that coveted challengers box and are just stealing market share. The market growth last year was around 16, 18%. We're growing 50% year over year. So and then, the name Invicti is an interesting one. It is the Latin word for unconquerable.
Okay.
We make applications unconquerable. And so INVICTI, and it's .com. And, we have tens of thousands of hits, on our website every day. And we welcome people to, come there. And that's a place through both chat and other forms of communication. We set up demos, learn, try, buy. We produce regular weekly, actually twice a week webinars for people to go and just casually come in and start to see the product and see it at work and everything else. So,
fantastic. Well, Michael, it was great to catch up. Thank you so much for your time. Best wishes at RSA and keep me posted on the milestones this year.
Joe, it was really, really great to connect up with you again, too. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the time and look forward to staying in touch as we embark on this great journey of ours here.